And I guess we can go ahead and get started. Do you have a few things to say here?
Always. Hello. Hi. Okay, now this is all about secret codes. So I got to assume that you people have a bunch of secrets. Yeah? Okay.
I can't read it.
You can't read it? Wait, I know somebody who can. Right over here.
You can read that?
I can.
She's such a smart girl. Let's hear it.
It says codes and ciphers for kids and adults.
Good. In a minute, I did that.
You don't know her.
Yeah, we don't know her. She's not a shill.
That's cool.
Does everybody in the audience have a party favor? Yeah? Okay, good. Shoot.
So this is about sending secret messages. Right. So this is about sending secret messages. In the description for this, right, it says some messages are for everybody and some aren't. And this class is for everybody, or at least that's the intent. So there's the first one. Can you guys read this?
One person.
It's the same code. So this is to kind of let you see what's going on. Oh, this is interesting. That should be in red.
It is in red.
Not on this. Okay, so, all right. So the big black there shows it's in code. The green is the stuff that's going to be in what's called plain text. It's the stuff you can read. So you'll see things like this, right? So we're converting S to T and N to O.
There's a big word for that. It's called an algorithm. For me, it just means the pattern, the rule. And in this particular code, it's a simple one. Add one letter, or do this.
Go back. So S becomes T, so you go to the next letter. That's the algorithm. We have more people coming in. They need goodies. So, because this is an introduction, we've talked about codes and ciphers, so let's figure out what they are. With a code, you can have one thing take a whole message, okay? So for example, well, first of all, codes are all around us. You just heard one earlier when Scott announced the code for donating, right? AHA 2019, hard to remember. American Heart Association 2019, cool. Okay, so street signs. Anybody who drives knows what these signs means, or at least you should.
And they
'Cause you have
know
to take the
them
test.
even if they can't read them. Everybody here, even those who don't drive, know what that red almost circle means, don't we?
Right?
It's code. Even without the word stop on it, we know to stop.
So part of what makes it secret, though, is you can't just look at it, and if you don't know the rules, you don't know what the things mean. The shape tells you something. A diamond is a warning. A rectangle is information. Octagon means stop, right? So you got that. The colors tell you something, right? So it's not just what you can see. You have to know what it means. That's part of what makes it a code. Josh, what are those?
That right over there is part of the Waffle House menu.
Who's been to a Waffle House lately?
Yeah.
Everybody?
So
Yeah.
if you recognize that, or even if you don't, that's toppings for the hash browns.
Right? So smothered, covered, chunked, diced, that means something to the cooks. They know, right? Or if you go in there and you place orders. I place an order for a waffle. Chris wants a waffle and hash browns. What do they say? Waffle on 2, make 1 a plate. It means something to the cook. They know exactly what they have to do. So that's more codes. This is a
barcode.
thank you, a barcode.
Every
So
time you
called
buy
because-
something, it has a barcode on it. It means nothing to us, but it means all kinds of things to Target or to the cash register.
If you know what the differences between the thick and thin lines means, you can decode this. This one says Wikipedia, which is a good place to go to learn things. There's another type of barcode that is becoming very popular. This is called a QR code or a 3D barcode. These dots or these squares here tell the system which way it's aligned. So if it's upside down or sideways, the system can still read it. With this, if it's in the wrong direction, it's hard for the computer to tell what to do. But you've got this, and then all this stuff in here is the data, but it also includes error correction information. So you could stick something like the DragonCon logo in the middle of it. You've seen other things that have logos or pictures in there, and it can recreate the data that's missing or that's been destroyed because it's in here multiple times and there's error correction stuff to it. So it's an advanced version of this and a way to have more information in less space.
The Boy Scouts, they have a merit badge all about signs, signals, and codes. It's interesting if you're involved in the Scout organization, or even if you're not. You should probably check it out. See what it's got to offer.
And this thing. What's that?
The most famous code of all,
Oh, wait.
perhaps.
Who knows this code? You guys all know this
Everybody that
code?
raises their, let's see.
Okay, I'm old.
This is one of the most famous codes. It's for video games. It's called the Konami code. Anyone know what game it originated in?
Konami?
Contra.
Contra. Oh.
Gave you extra lives.
Well, why would they put in this is a cheat code, most people think, right?
It is a cheat code.
Because it lets you cheat at the game. But why would they stick something like that in a game? Debugging, that's why it first got put in there, is because somebody had to go through and make sure the game all works. And if it takes 20 hours to get to level 5, and you have to test level 6, you can't do all that in a reasonable amount of time. So they had to do stuff to make it so easier so you could go through and get to the different places.
Nice work if you can get it.
Okay, so on that book from the Boy Scouts, they had a guy in a striped shirt raising his arms. You know what that's all about? That's from football. I am not a football person, but even I know that in football, one code like this can tell a whole team what they're supposed to do, right? The quarterback yells, "Green 23," and everybody knows where they're supposed to be, and when the ball is hiked, what they're supposed to do off of 2 words. Well, a word and a number, right?
So it's a lot more efficient sometimes to have a code that means a whole lot of stuff.
And it's
Football
also,
games are long enough. If we had to wait for the guy with the ball to say, okay, you go right, and you go left, and you run over there.
it's also a good way to make sure that the other team doesn't know what kind of thing you're going to do, so that they can't counter it as effectively.
Cool.
Come on, somebody tell about the fine.
The fine?
Yeah.
It's a
Football
fine code?
books. You know what happens if you lose your football code book? $10,000 fine, and the whole team takes you out and beats you up. Because
Well-
they're going to have to memorize a whole new code book.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
don't
makes me wonder, though, what happens if they transfer a player in the middle of the... Do they do that? Do you ever transfer a player in the middle of the season? Yeah? So now somebody who knows your code is on another team? That's... Oh, okay. You're just messing with me because I don't know football. That's mean. That's cool. Okay. All right. Okay. So, and what I understand, though, is some players actually will sleep with the book so that it doesn't, like, wander off. Or maybe they're hoping it'll osmosis into their heads. I don't know. So that's a code. And another one like this, though,
I
Yeah.
love this story, except
you
I
guys
didn't
know
get the
about Mount
story right.
Everest? This really tallest mountain, and right?
You know, there was
So-
a time when people got all of their news from newspapers. They
Newspapers.
didn't go online.
Wait, what's a
they didn't use
newspaper?
Their phones. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a time when you couldn't just quickly type in something and have it go to your editor in order to be printed in a paper. So guys came up with codes so that they could keep the scoop. Their paper could be the first one to run it. Climbing Mount Everest was a really big deal back in the early 1950s, and there were a bunch of reporters that were waiting and watching. Problem was, it was a tough scoop. If anybody heard you know something, maybe they could get it to their paper first.
So,
So James Morris wanted this scoop bad. So he made up his own little code book. Do we have a picture of that?
We do. The thing is, so Morris was the only reporter that went up the mountain. The other ones were smart and said,
Yeah,
I'll
we'll just
wait, and
till
when he comes
back
down, I can get the story from him.
Uh-huh.
So he came down, and he sent a message.
And this is the message he sent. Snow conditions are bad. Advanced base abandoned. Awaiting improvement.
Which sounds like nothing's
Sounds
happening,
like
really.
nothing good happened, right? His code book in the hands of his editor, however, told his editor this.
Well, there's his
Snow
code.
conditions bad meant Everest had been climbed. And advanced base abandoned meant that Hillary had done it. And awaiting improvement meant that Tenzing was with him. And so James got his scoop because
So-
nobody knew
Yeah.
from that.
So
that
this was
Mount
actually a
Everest had been
code.
climbed.
Yeah. So this was actually a code that told them what really happened. There we go.
Oh,
So-
yeah, code blue. Anybody know about code blue? Come on. How many people know what code blue is?
Who says?
There's a couple of people. It's a hospital code. Want to tell us what it is?
When you have a life-threatening emergency.
Oh, what?
That's code blue is declared when you have a life-threatening emergency on
Yeah, it's
general
actually-
med-surg floor.
When the heart stops and the
Yeah.
breathing stops, the crash cart comes because somebody gets on an intercom and says, code blue to room 121, so that people don't panic. All they hear is code blue. Of course, now we all know what code blue means, so we'll panic.
Right.
But
when the
as soon
staff
as
hears
that code blue gets declared, the doctors head for it. The crash cart heads for it. The nurses head for it. And it's kind of an all hands hit the deck very, very
And
quickly.
the people who aren't involved know clear the way to 215 because there's going to be a bunch of people coming through really fast.
By the way, code red, fire. Just thought you'd like to know.
So that's a quick look at codes. Then we have ciphers. And ciphers are a little more complex and a lot more flexible because with a code, you have to decide up ahead of time, what messages do I want to send? And you have a fixed book or a fixed document that tells you what it's going to be. So with Hillary and his stuff, if it turned into some guy they'd never heard of made it first,
They
you
wouldn't
couldn't
have any
send that
code
message.
for that.
Yeah. So, but with a cipher, you have a lot more flexibility because you're working with one letter at a time instead of words or whole messages. And there's two basic types of ciphers. There's the type where one letter changes into another, like what we saw earlier, right? So simple cipher becomes this, and you can see C becomes D, I becomes... So this is a Caesar cipher with a key of 1. And then the other type is, oh yeah, when you get to the end, so if you're doing zebra, Z becomes A because you have to wrap around, so it all works. The other way is when the letters get rearranged, and that's another type of cipher, and there's different keys for that. This is a simple one because we're doing a simple cipher. So here, we're just reversing it, right? So if you read it backwards, it says simple cipher.
So who knows who Julius Caesar is? Do you know? He was a smart, smart emperor a long, long time ago. He looked like that. Sort of.
I don't think he was that green. Yeah.
I kind of think that he wasn't green, and he probably didn't stand around with his hand up. But he was a smart guy.
We didn't
he was
have
trying
any
to take over the world. And one of the ways that you got to win wars is to be able to tell your people what they need to do and not let the enemy know what you're going to do. So he came up with what we now call the Julius Caesar cipher. And it's pretty simple. Some people call it a substitution cipher.
And you've seen some of this, so we'll just do one quick run through with a key of +1, so S becomes T.
Okay, here's what we need. When you know what the next letter is, call it out. pretty good. You could go faster than this, you guys.
Yeah. So
Okay, so
I
the
think they got it.
simplest possible cipher is just taking one letter and having it mean something else. Simple, right? Yes? Okay, good.
So now it's your turn.
Aha.
You've all got little bags.
You all got little bags. And if you open your bag, there'll be a little card in it, and there'll be a pen in it.
If you do
and
not,
we want you to take
if you do
the
not have a
pen.
bag, please raise your hand and we will come bring you one.
Ah, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All you need right now is your pen and a card. Got it? Do not stab yourself in the leg with the pen.
That's not what it's for.
Do
Not
not
what it's for. Do not stab your next door neighbor in the leg.
do not write your name on this card.
Do not write
Only
your name
write
on this
your
card.
encrypted name on it.
Everybody got it? Okay.
So
So this is a test.
take out the
This is
card,
only a test.
and you're going to encrypt your first name, but you got to do 2 characters, right?
Okay, listen up, guys. So we're going to use a simple cipher. And if your name started with a C, and we were using +2, what would it be? Yeah?
You got it.
What about if it was J? This is Joss. So
That's
what
me.
if it was J? What would it be? Okay? So what you do is you count
Hard to
2.
pronounce.
A Z would be
Yes, you just did it.
Okay.
count 2. So what I want you to do is I want you to code your name on this card. Do not write your name on the card. Encrypt it on the card. And if you've already written your name on the card, I'll give you a new card.
Or you can cross it out. Just make sure people can't read your name if you actually wrote your name.
Did you really do that?
I didn't do it.
See, we're related to these people. These 2 people right here, the ones that aren't listening, they're the ones that are related to us. Yeah. Those are our people right there. They'll never come to anything we do again.
Yeah, they will.
Okay, does everybody have their name encrypted?
Everybody got it?
That's no. No, it's not. Well, in a minute, we're going to use that.
Those just came in. 3.
What'd I do with them?
I don't know. Where's the bag? Oh, there it is. Okay. Not to
Take
rush
it
you,
away.
but does everybody have their name encrypted? Yeah?
Everybody's got their
Okay.
name encrypted, right?
Good.
Who doesn't have something to do with?
Because next step is
Okay.
hold on to it for a bit.
No, we're not doing that. Now we're decrypting.
That there is next.
So we're going to take the encrypted stuff that we had, and now it's time to decrypt it. So we'll practice this. So the key was +1 when we encrypted, so now it's going to be a -1. No, you can't do
I thought you said we
+2.
were doing +2.
On your name.
+2,
On your name.
right?
When we
name.
when we encrypted this, we did it with a +1.
This,
Yes, but when we were...
This is an earlier example.
Yeah.
I
This
got
is
it.
another example. You got to stick with this. It's like so. This
All right.
this is on the screen. It's for you to see. We're giving you the hard part to do on the page, right? So to do this, so when you're decrypting, since it was a +1 to encrypt it, it now becomes a -1 because that undoes what we did to encrypt it, right? So T goes back to S. So when we do that,
Except,
Right.
hang on.
oh,
I don't know about you, but when I learned my ABCs, I learned to do it with this little song. And so when I have to go backwards, I
You
gotta
sing it
sing
backwards?
the whole stupid thing to get to T, to know what happened. Yeah? Guess what? We have a solution. The solution is in your bag. Here's what we want you to do. This is very complicated. You ready? What we want you to do is to take the pin and put it through the tiny white dot on the Elantu ring. Elantu is our mascot. He's a little dragon because this is Dragon Con. Come on, gotta have a little. Ha! Look at that man. Oh yeah, I need some help. I need some help from some short people. Would you help me? Would you pass these out so everybody has one real quick? You pass them down. Yeah, you guys already did something that wasn't happening here. All right. So that little tack in that Elantu ring is not going to help you unless you have the back end of the ring. Uh-huh. And we're passing them out right now. So when you get a sheet of paper, it will have 2 back rings. One of them has no letters on it. Yes. No? Okay. I sure hope you have a lot more. Because the guy said he gave me 100. All right, guys. So the way you do it is tack through the white dot, tack through the black dot.
And then for the one with the letters?
Yeah, the one with the letters would be good.
Okay.
And the foam rubber on the back. No laughing. This is serious stuff. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that help. Got it? And now it's an easy thing. You can hold on to the back and you can spin your wheel around so that you can figure out, without singing the song, what T or what happens before T. And by the way, I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work, right?
Yep,
Okay.
that's how it works. So for practice, you can look at the wheel, or you can maybe subtract in your head, do the letter before. But since it's a plus 1 minus 1, we're just gonna write R E T C O D E S A R E F U N. Yay! Woo-hoo. Okay.
Okay.
So you've done it with everybody. Now it's time to take.
All right. You think you can do one?
Yeah.
Good. Everybody take the card they just encoded their name on and give it to somebody you don't know.
Someone who doesn't know what your name is.
Can you decode it? As soon as you decode it, turn around and say hello to your new friend. You know their name.
Now remember, we encoded the names with +2, so it's -2,
+2.
so you got to back up 1, right?
Did you write it down?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead and write it down.
Hence the pen.
We're going to do this one together. -2, okay? So becomes D.
Need something? Oh. Somebody have a card that they've encoded that they need to decode? Oh, they know your name, so we can't use you.
Can't use you. I I know now. I learn quickly. Two back. Here's mine. So, did you figure out what your new friend's name was? Did you guys learn each other's names? Did you pass it to somebody else?
Person we know.
Good.
My name's up there, so I can use mine.
There we go.
Cool. Okay.
Everybody got it? Well, people who had to decode things like Esmeralda, I guess it's going to take them a little while.
We've got numbers on the decoder wheel. So A goes to 9 instead of... Yeah, so due to interesting planning, there's a slight bug in this. If you have a name with like the letter Z, it's going to say when we encoded it, Z plus 2 goes to AB, but from B, if you're using the wheel there, it's got numbers in it too. So you're going to have to skip the numbers and back up. Yeah.
Would you like to know how come our wheel has numbers on it? Really? I'll tell you why. Because I'm a total mathematic idiot. And when I found out that I had to cut up a wheel into 26 even spaces, I panicked. And then I realized if I just added 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, I was going to make it 36. And there are 360 degrees in a circle. That I could do.
It also makes it harder for somebody who's trying to break your code if you're using that wheel instead of a standard 26-letter wheel.
It's true.
Because now you've got numbers in there.
Katie, yay!
I did it though. It's not good. You did it.
Now you might be noticing that you have another wheel there with nothing on it. And that would be just in case you and your honey wanted to have a secret code you wanted to invent all by yourself. You wouldn't have to use letters. You could use squiggles. You could use absolutely anything. All you'd have to do is make sure that there were 36 of them.
And later on, we'll show you another way of doing that. Yes? Pardon? Oh, you need some more? Yeah. I think we got a couple.
Yeah, we got a bunch. I got it.
You got some? Okay. Wait.
Who needs?
Okay. So, all right. Here's a challenge. You've done it with a simple decryption where you could actually kind of do it in your head, adding and subtracting a couple numbers. But what if it was a difference of 7, right? So K goes to D because it's wrapping around. Or I'm sorry, we're doing the decoding. 7 goes to D. That's a lot harder because if you're going to sing the song in your head, then you still got to remember how many letters am I going to go forward or backwards. You can use the ring, but that's kind of challenging too. So
let's introduce the possibility of a hacker. Oh no, not a hacker, a decoder.
So
This was the part where we planned to do the...
yeah, eventually you could do this and you'd find out what it says is Dragon Con rocks, right? Which is a true statement, but it takes a while to do this. So maybe there's another way.
There is
Maybe in
indeed
this
another
computer age, there's a better way. What do you think, Joss?
All right. So,
Talking to the mic.
I decided to have a little fun on my own. And for my computer class that I took last year, my final project was a decoder for a Caesar cipher. And here we have that message that we just decoded. We remember it had a key of 7. And I created a program that decodes it for you.
How does that work?
What it does is it goes through all 26 possibilities. It increments every letter by 1, takes the next letter and saves that to the memory, and takes +2 and saves that to memory, and +3 and saves that to memory.
You're cheating. You're trying every possible combination.
That is exactly what I'm doing. Then it checks every word in the message for every combination against a giant list of words that I found online. So it checks it against about 50,000 common words, and anytime that it finds a word, it adds 1 to the message's little score. Whatever has the highest score has the highest possibility of being the correct message. And so then it gives you DragonCon Rocks.
So you cheated and got a good grade in the class.
Exactly.
I don't know if that's cheating. That sounds pretty
Well,
smart
no,
to
actually,
me.
this is the brute force. If you were a cryptanalyst, right? So there's cryptographers. Crypto is a word meaning hidden or disguised. So cryptography is hidden writing. Cryptanalysis is somebody whose job is to break codes, and they look for patterns. They look for all sorts of things. One of the ways to do this kind of stuff is the brute force method. Try every single combination. And, for you or me, it could take a long time. For a computer, you saw how long it took. It was like that, and it had it. Now, this is a fairly short message, but still, right? It's pretty cool. That takes us to the next piece. That's the demo. Enigma. You guys know what Enigma is? What's an Enigma? Oh, that's the Enigma, yes.
That's
But
the Enigma.
An Enigma is a puzzle, right? Yeah. But Enigma is a very famous machine, yeah. Exactly. It was an encoding device that looked like this. You guys probably don't know what a typewriter is, do you? Some of you. So think about an ancient stone and knife bearskin keyboard for a computer. These little plungers here all have the alphabet on it, and it's in the Shoals standard, the QWERTY layout, right? So you push down on that, and if this was a typewriter, there would be an actual physical metal bar that would come up and smack the paper, and there was an ink ribbon between, so it would smack the paper and leave the image of the letter you were typing. But the Enigma wasn't done that way. The Enigma had this lamp board here, and these are the same letters, but underneath it there's a little light. But when you push Q, the Q light doesn't light up. A different light lights up, and that's the encrypted letter, or the decrypted letter, depending on what you're doing. Back here, there's 3 rotors. This was an early version. They later went to, I think, 5 rotors on some of them. And the rotors rotate. And the sneaky part about it is there's wires connected to those rotating pieces. So this is a 4-rotor version. So there's wires that are connecting through here, and it goes in, and it goes, I don't have a picture of it, but if you can imagine a wheel, right? So around this, there's all these wires coming in, one for every letter. And the wire comes out on the other side of the rotor, but it's going not straight through, it's going to some other letter.
Totally random.
Yeah. And then that goes to the next rotor, which has its own encoding, which goes to the next rotor and hits with encoding. And on top of all that, there's plug boards in the front where you could have other extra wiring happening here. So you had, I don't know, it's like billions of possible combinations for any letter. And the fun part...
If we were talking about the Julius Caesar code, it would be this hard,
Yeah.
right? If we're talking about Enigma, it would be around this whole building hard. That's
This
how
is huge.
many different possibilities it would have.
Yeah.
Hugely, impossibly difficult to break. And, of course, to make it harder, they changed it every day. So just as they'd get close to breaking that code, they'd change it.
Yep.
Ooh.
Oh, and there was one more piece too. If you hit H here, and the R light lights up, the next time you hit H, it's not R, because everything's rotated again, and it's a new combination. Yeah, it was a really so. All right, think about how would you break a code like that, right? It's just crazy. So this guy, Alan Turing. He was a famous mathematician, and he is credited with inventing the idea of the computer to solve a math problem. But he used that information to work on this. They weren't getting very far until somebody else realized, hey, all these messages from Germany start off with the same two little phrases, little combinations. And somebody guessed, I wonder if it's Heil Hitler. Because that seems to be what they say usually to start off a conversation. So they use that information. They thought about, these are people who are doing this, and people tend to have habits in how they do things. So they use that plus all this information. Turing built this thing called a bomb, which is, I think that's the Polish spelling, because they got the idea, the original design from the Polish. They built this thing, and they wound up eventually had 3 of them. And it helped them break the codes. It couldn't do it necessarily all by itself, but because they had people understanding what kind of patterns were there, they were able to do some of this. Each one of these is combinations, and it just generated all sorts, and when said, hey, I think I got a match, right? People would look at this stuff. So they were able to break a lot of the codes, and then they had to figure out what do we do with the information, because if the Germans figure out we can read their codes, they're not going to use this thing anymore. So they had to be very careful about when we take advantage of knowing about this and when don't we. Alan Turing's also known for inventing the Turing machine, but that's computer science stuff and you probably don't care about that. Or maybe you do. This thing is called the Pigpen Cipher. Some people call it, well, people call it that because what you get when you're doing this makes people think of pig pens. What you do is, for A, you take the part of the section that's there around it, and that's A. So this B is this U-shaped C, right? You could put this on your other ring, right? And now someone's going to look at a message, and well, so okay, so ABCD for the JKL, you just put the dot in here, right? The SGUV are the angles because those are the pieces, and then the dots. This one fits out very nicely with 26 letters because, you know. So if you were to do something like DragonCon in Pigpen, it would look like this, right? So D, right? And most people who haven't seen something like this Pigpen cipher would just go, I have no idea what to do with this. But it's the same thing. It's one symbol for another symbol. In this case, it's just, instead of a letter, it's some kind of a drawing. You could break it the same way. What else? Oh, anybody here familiar with a webcomic called Girl Genius? Yeah. In their first book, the Folios published a PDF that has a 4-ring, this is a 2-ring wheel, decoder wheel. They have a 4-ring decoder wheel. If you search Girl Genius decoder wheel, there's a PDF. It's in full color, so it looks like, because it's a steampunk thing, it's all brass and stuff with yours.
It's gorgeous.
It looks really nice. We didn't have the funds to make those for you, but you could go online. They're free for, you know, the PDF is free, and you're allowed to use it. There's no copyright infringement, so it's all cool. And if you think 2 wheels is fun, getting a 3rd and a 4th wheel in there starts getting you more like Enigma. So, and that leaves us with just this. Some of the resources we use for this, there's this wonderful book called Can You Crack the Code? It has a lot of the information we talked about. It has a lot more information than what we talked about, because this is just an intro. Cracking codes with Python. This might look familiar to you. Manga Guide to Cryptography. It's an interesting book. The story is an art thief is leaving messages, coded messages, and they're trying to crack the codes to try and catch the art thief. And in this book, more for adults, the code book, lots of good stuff in here too. And this goes up to what they call quantum cryptography, which is just mind-bending. If you want to learn more about the Enigma machine, these are 2 videos from YouTube. They actually, one of them, they take it apart and show you some of the inside guts to it, but they explain a lot of the stuff that happened to it. And I think that's it. Do you guys have questions? We should have asked. Questions?
I see a question.
We have you can throw that at them. It's a soft box that has the microphone in it.
My question was, they're starting to make quantum computers. They have for a while now. I want to know if you think that quantum computers will in the future be able to solve harder ciphers and codes that have not been cracked yet. Like AES, I know will eventually be cracked. Triple DES, like all those.
That's okay. So, do I think so?
I just jumped a couple levers.
He is going to say yes,
I'm a
and
science
I'm going to
geek.
say no.
I'm a science geek, and I believe that the computers will be able to do it because they're getting so small and so fast that they can brute force a lot of stuff that we couldn't do before. But there's some stuff like there's the Cryptos is the CIA algorithms, the CIA encryptions. There's these at the CIA headquarters, there's a statue. It's not a statue. There's a monolith or whatever you want to call it that has codes encrypted into it, which makes sense because that's what they do there. And
one artist did it,
yeah.
And it's in 3 parts.
Yep.
And finally, 2 of them have been cracked, but the 3rd one has not.
Right.
So these 2 computer guys are going to tell you that computers are going to be able to do this. But this not computer
I'm not
guy
gonna.
wants to point out one little thing. That Enigma machine that we were talking about, they would not have been able to crack except for the human failing that had everybody start their letters with Heil Hitler. And when they figured that out, they were on their way to cracking the code. So if there's human failing available, we're going to be able to crack that sucker. If there isn't human failing available, I'm not entirely convinced, but maybe.
Well, and that's the thing is because they can go so fast, it's possible you can brute force it, just like Joss's program brute forced the Julius Caesar thing. But that's, I personally, I think there's going to be somebody's going to get a flash of intuition because they know the artist, they know some of the stuff he's done before, and I think they're going to cue on that. It's sort of like in Ready Player One, if you've seen that movie, right? The guy's, it's like, he hated rules. He wouldn't be making more rules, right? And, right, so that kind of thing. Somebody's going to get that flash and go, oh, and that's going to put him on the right path, and that'll make it easier. But, it could happen.
I think I'm a non-tech person. There was a cute little book that we checked out at the library that I was dying to talk about because it had lists of invisible ink, like lemon juice and heat. You write a little note in lemon juice and you give it to somebody and it looks like a blank piece of paper until they stick it up next to a light bulb that's hot. And then all of a sudden you can read it. I love secret codes like that.
That works with incandescent bulbs, but with the...
What?
It works with incandescent bulbs because they get hot, but the LED bulbs don't really.
Oh, that's right.
So...
Candle? Oh, don't burn the paper.
Yeah. This young man has got a question.
more
And
questions?
then, no, over there, Chris, the guy, there you go. The young person there. Yeah.
Young person right here. Nice mic, huh? Isn't that cool? Speak into them.
What is the empty wheel for?
The empty wheel is, can you go back to Pigpen?
Yeah.
If I wanted to do a secret code just for you and me, I could make one up on that wheel. We have the ABCs on the inside and all of those blank ones on the outside. Now we could decide what we were going to have. Maybe we would do it so that it looked like a smiley thing. We could do it with nothing but emojis. This emoji always stands for a day. This emoji, like that. So you can make up your own code with the empty one. And I think emojis would be a grand way to do it.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Oh, just go for it.
What is the extra wheels for when you have multiple wheels instead of just two?
What are the extra wheels for when you have multiple than 2?
You mean like 2 and 3 and 4 wheels?
Mm-hmm.
Take it away. I'm going to tell you all about it.
When you add the extra wheels, it gives you more opportunities to encrypt and just make it harder for someone to decrypt the message. If you get into this stuff, there's all sorts of other things. Like we talked about reordering the letters, right? So reversing the message. So CAT would be TAC. You can do things where if you take the message and write the letters, say you've got 3 lines like this. So you do CAT. So if you do secret, SECRET, right? And then read across and take just the top row and the next row and the next row, you've changed the pattern of the letters, and it makes it harder for somebody to read, right? Which reminds me of something that Chris wanted us to talk about, passwords. One really cool way of coming up with a hard-to-guess password is if you have a sentence or a phrase, like as a Boy Scout, there's what they call the 12 laws. It's trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. If you took the first letter of each one of those, unless you're a scout, you're not going to have any idea what you're looking at when you see my password, or you wouldn't be able to guess it, right? So you can take a phrase or something that means something to you, and just take the first letter of each one of those and create your password that way.
And it's a sentence that only you know. Have you seen these passwords lately? They're crazy. It's not like just my emails. I mean, it's like crazy. Long strings of letters that don't mean anything. So if you had a sentence like, my name is Chris and great. I can remember that sentence, and you wouldn't know that was my sentence. But that became my password. I, M for my, N for name, I is Stephen Chris. I would always be able to remember that password simply by remembering that sentence. It would be. After I read this, that's now what happens. My name is Chris, and
And you had a question?
What makes a cipher easier or harder to brute force for a computer?
I'll answer this one because I am the computer geek.
All right, computer geek.
So the hardest part of making a computer know how to crack something is 2 things. One, the person who programs it has to know what the code is, and 2, there can't be too many combinations, because the more combinations you have, the more different things the computer has to run through and check each and every possible one of them. So with the Caesar cipher, you only have 26 combinations, but for Pigpen, you can swap the letters around whatever way you like. For example, it's like tic-tac-toe. You could put C, D, F, whatever you wanted in each of the boxes, and that would be incredibly difficult for a computer to crack.
Still in all, didn't the program that you write actually deal with that? What it was actually doing was doing substitutions again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And when it got one that had 5 or 6 words in it, it said, hell, check this one. The faster the computer, the more likely it is that they're going to have those types of codes broken. But as fast
We have a question over on the right side here.
You were talking about the first two codes that were cracked. What was the significance of those two codes, and when were they cracked? The first two codes?
Are you talking about the Enigma?
Cryptos.
Yes.
Cryptos.
No, yes.
Cryptos, the monument, CIA.
The CIA one, yeah.
Actually, not that long ago. One of them was cracked, I think, if I remember, like maybe 8 years, and it's been sitting there for a long time.
30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
30 years. There's the girl. And somebody finally cracked the second one.
The fourth one hasn't been cracked. There's 4 parts, 3 have been cracked.
There we go.
I was just at a camera for it, so.
And there's mine.
Here you go. Thank you.
Okay. My next one is for the computer geek, and I won too. So I was wondering if you've encrypted anything or created a decryptor for anything harder than just that. Because I have friends, it was 4 of them who were just beginning to learn how to code, and they coded a decryption for the Pigpen Cipher. And then we're on this cryptography class. Then about 2 of them created a decryption for the Visioneer cipher, which is a lot harder. So I was wondering if. No, I was just wondering what decryption or what have you created decryption for?
Oh, this is the only one that I really took the time to do. I kind of thought about doing a Visioneer cipher, but that's so many more different combinations because of the number of possible keys that you could have.
Yeah, I know. We spent 4 hours, probably more, trying to crack this one.
Hours. There are people who spend months on this.
So, one of the things that I thought we might be able to get to, but didn't know if we'd have time, is one way to make it difficult is do a combination. So this is what we were doing with the Caesar cipher, right? But if you take that and then
you doing that rail fence
yeah.
thing?
So
Look
if you
at
take
this,
that
guys.
and
This is insane.
take the encoded part and put that into a routing cipher where this, in this case, I have 3 rows, right? So you can see the U, G, E, T, G, V, right, is going down like this, right? And then you read across, so you get this, okay? Now, here's the fun part. That bottom section there, if you did the Caesar cipher and you got the right letters, it would still read like garbage because they're in the wrong positions. If you do the rail part and you get that decrypted, you just get the top part again, the U, G, E, G, T. It's like, it doesn't help. You've got to get them both, right? So 2 simple ones can make it harder for the guy decrypting. Either one of those is easy to do, but when you combine translating the letters and putting them in a different order, then it gets harder for the folks who are trying to crack the code. Right? And these are just 2 simple ones. If you used, Visioneer or some of the other ones, and then turned it into Pigpen, right? It'd just be a mess. The other part for computers is they don't read Pigpen. You'd have to encode it somehow to. Yeah. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I could toss this.
Don't hit anybody. It's wrapped in foam, so it won't hurt the microphone.
Okay. When you were talking about the sentence that you did to make your password, so I just wonder if it's a lot harder to crack the codes when you add the symbols and the numbers and everything. Is that why the government kind of makes you use symbols and numbers?
They want you to change your password every 42 seconds.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Oh, really?
the thing they like is you gotta have a capital letter, you gotta have a small letter, you gotta have a number, you gotta have a symbol. Every single one of those makes it a lot
Harder,
to
right.
crack. So, if you come up with that sentence, and it has a percent sign, it's gonna be hard to crack.
Well, I think
I was going to say, it actually can make it less hard because every rule you add to a password, to the requirement on a password, reduces the number of things that a computer would have to check. It improves the average password in general because then you can't have somebody who has a password that has a password.
What's the best way to come up with that?
Your idea of the sentences, if you discuss
Yeah,
this,
The sentences, yeah.
requiring the symbols and numbers is no longer considered best practice.
So the best is to do it like on your own without having it
You
required.
can't do it, but it's not required.
And not only that, but also requiring people to change their passwords to actually support passwords because they need that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, for the geeks here, XKCD comic. I heard somebody say, yeah. He did an actual comic talking about the difficulty of making passwords and how we've been trained to make passwords that are difficult for us to remember but easy for computers to guess, but hard for us, right? Whereas we want to make it easy for us to remember and hard for computers to guess. So, and the traditional password now is correct horse battery staple. The idea is pick 4 words that aren't really related, stick them together, and the image was, there's a battery with a staple stuck in it, and the guy's saying, that's correct, horse, it's a battery staple. If you go to tech conferences now, that's the standard password. And when you're talking about security stuff, so here's your password, correct horse.
Not 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, and he's like, hard for a computer to guess. Yes, there's like 43 bits of data there, or bytes of data there that the computer's got to figure out. And how hard is it for you to remember? You already know it. And it's just like correct horse battery staple. It's in your head, right? It won't go.
The thing that's harder for a computer is that it's so much longer.
Yes,
than
right.
An 8-character with so much symbols.
Right.
All right. It looks like we have another question. Left side.
Punt. Oh. Just.
Is anyone going to make like a better computer to decrypt or encrypt codes or ciphers?
Every day. Every day we're working on making a better one.
I just want to mention on the passwords, if you go to the EFF booth out on the top floor over here, they have some dice you can roll with some worksheets to generate your own complex password.
How do you remember it?
They have by fandoms. So if you visit the booth, you can have them randomly generate a fandom-based password using giant inflatable D20s.
Well, thank you, people. Appreciate you being here. Hope you learned something.